Hello and welcome again, everyone, to our Wednesday news series where we hear from social entrepreneurs and their teams from around the world about timely topics and solutions. My name is Nani Zulminarni. I'm Ashoka Southeast Asia Diamond Leaders. We are thrilled to have many of you joining today for Ashoka's global community, and also a big welcome to those joining from the Flying Lab and WeRobotics community. Today, for the next 30 minutes, we'll be hearing from Sonja Betschart. Before we get started, just a reminder that we love hearing from you as we move along. Feel free to drop your question in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll get to as many as we can in the second half. And thank you to our partner, Bears Drop, for making this conversation possible and for supporting 5 social entrepreneurs who address topics of female empowerment in the COVID-19 crisis and beyond. Okay, so now I'd love to introduce today's guest, Sonja Betschart, a co-founder of WeRobotics, which now have its global network of flying labs across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. To read this title already, wow. Thinking about robotics, right? What's fascinating about Sonja initiative is it's filling some gaps and inequality in the world, such as the recognition of local knowledge and also gender gap in access to technology. So let's start our conversation. Sonja, welcome. And it's really fascinating to visit your website and also to hear some of your talk. First thing I would like to ask, what brought you to that work? And it's it's so different compared to others. And what things you want to contribute to this work?
Thank you so much, Nani. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited about this discussion. So what brought me here essentially are 2 things. I think the first one is when I have worked most of my life in entrepreneurship in technology. And about 12 years ago, I came across drone technology. And I was just fascinated by this kind of technology because it gives a lot of power to people, to communities to create their own data. And data is power, especially spatial data has a lot of power. It is in the hands of governments today a lot in many countries, for example, with satellite imagery. So having the power to create your own data for communities is really something amazing. But then, so the love was one thing, but then on the other hand was the frustration of lost opportunities, because the ones who needed it most did not have access to these kind of technologies, and not just the technology, but the opportunities to work with these technologies, the opportunities to lead in their communities, the opportunities to share the knowledge, the local knowledge, which has an important value when you create data, spatial data. So all of that did not exist. Most, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, any kind of work was led mostly by international experts. And so that frustration of knowing that there's hundreds of thousands of local experts out there who would be much better placed in the countries to lead that work, and of them being excluded, really drove the idea of we need to do something about this. And everything is kind of there. It's just about connecting. It's about connecting the local experts and their local lived experience and expertise with the opportunities and with the technology, the knowledge on how to best use it, and with a platform where they can share with each other, share their experiences to enrich their own experience and experience in people in other countries who have similar issues. So it is really kind of both. A love for something and a big frustration on the other side.
Wow. Yeah, I always believe that life experience is powerful source of knowledge, right? And from this work, what do you think? What do you see the change in terms of the ability of local people to really bring their life experience into powerful knowledge to make change in their life?
I think it's,
give an example for what
right.
is.
I think it's actually a lot about just being, we use technology as an excuse. I think that's kind of it allows to create data, but in many ways, if we look at projects of flying labs, only about 10% is about technology. Only about 10% is about the drones. And I can give a really cool example from South Africa, because I was part of a conference last week that South Africa Flying Labs organized. So it reminded me of this really cool example. So South Africa Flying Labs, about a year ago, embarked on a project with an illegal settlement in Johannesburg to use drone data to be able to make disaster risk reduction data. So flood models, fire models, data that allows to take better decisions in recurring disasters that happen each year. So work with the illegal, in the illegal settlement. But again, like 90% of the work is about how the data is actually going to be applied and is about stakeholder engagement. So big parts of that project, as any Flying Labs project, was engaging with local communities, engaging with local governments, taking along civil society. So it's just bringing everyone together. And what I really love, what South Africa Flying Labs did, and what many Flying Labs do, is when they have a project opportunity like this, they also make a learning opportunity out of it, for example, for the local youth. So South Africa Flying Labs is led by this amazing, strong woman named Queen Ndlovu. And Queen, and just her being, coming in, engaging with the youth and taking them along, shows the youth how they possibly can have a career opportunity using technology and making an impact in their own communities. So long story short, they did the project. That was the main focus, but there was so much interest that came out of it. Thanks to the youth engagement, thanks to the engagement with the local communities and local government, so that the team of South Africa Flying Labs decided to hold a conference, to hold a webinar. So they organized the webinar with local civil society, just to talk about their experience. And then they had so much engagement back and so many questions back that they decided to host the first disaster risk reduction conference with drones in South Africa last week. So they hosted an in-person conference in Cape Town, where they invited hundreds of stakeholders from South Africa, and also, again, the women and the youth who were part of the project. So I was in a live session, and I was there from a distance, and I got to enjoy the panel of the women and youth session. And it was so fascinating to see how on this panel were two young girls who were able to be part of that project just through the youth engagement that Queen did, and how it is changing their lives already, how they think about, actually, we can think about careers in STEM where we can impact our own communities. So it started with this, very specific focus, but what comes out in the end is something so different. And I think that's the beauty of Flying Labs and their work. Because I always ask myself the question, I've been an international expert. I did projects like, would my projects ever turn into this? No, because I don't have this local power. I am not the one who is engaged in the community, and I'm not the one who can be the local role model. It needs to be local, strong women like Queen, and they will make a difference. It's not about the technology again, it's really making a difference in other women's lives and in young people's lives, in youth's lives, give them a perspective. Now that was a long answer, sorry, Nani.
No, it's really great. So, flying lab is always, something flying with lab. Usually, lab is people always think lab is something settled on that, and then with this flying lab, maybe you can elaborate a little bit. What is this? How it works? How can you introduce this technology to women, particularly women who mostly, marginalized in accessing technologies such as drone?
So the Flying Labs are local knowledge and expertise hubs that actually are opened, created by local experts themselves. So it's not WeRobotics who kind of builds up that network. It's really local experts who join the network on their own demand and want to become the local experts or the expertise hub in their country when it comes to drone and data and AI for social good. So that's kind of the scope. Now, for us, it's really important, when we talk again about inclusion, to go a step further and to do anything possible to have as many women part of the network as possible. Because, well, you will know so much better than me. Then, you know, if you touch on the intersectionality point, it's so if you're a woman in the tech sector, that's already an issue. So if you're a Black woman in the tech sector, that's a whole different issue than if you're a Black South African or a Black Ugandan woman in your own country, then that's still another whole kind of issue because nobody's taking you seriously. So for us, it is about having a strong network of local leaders where women are a strong representation too. So we are not where we would love to be. The network today has about 1/3 of women, which is a good start because our sector is way worse with just about 13% of women. But this is really, I think women, they have such a strong role. Again, you know, if I come back to my example from before, tech is only 10%. It's about engagement. It's about community engagement. It's about taking the lived experience and knowledge that communities have and include that in the data analysis of drone data, because drone data is only a part of the source, but the good decisions come out of having also community engagement and the lived experience of communities in there. And this is where women have such a strong role because, well, you know, that's just my personal belief, but in the end, in communities, women will be leading changes. They're the ones who will be leading changes. So to have as many women involved, also on the tech side, is just kind of a basic need.
Yeah. So in this kind of work, right, we know there's always a challenge. What do you think is the biggest challenge to bring this kind of mindset that first the local knowledge, women's experiences, grassroots people experiences actually the source of knowledge and as equal as others like a so-called expert, right? And others, of course, using, even though it's only 10% use the technology, but that's, I think, based on my experiences and looking at the grassroots, it's very powerful. It's to show, you know, the power on collecting the data information using this technology. And what are the challenges you face in this work?
I think the key challenges, you know, or I would say the local experts face is really the perception. It's the perception that they're not experts. And that's what you want to change, is really redefine who's an expert. And then again, if you're a woman, then, you know, you're going to suffer another level of bias on top of that with technology. So it's really the challenge of perception and the perception who's an expert. And what we see with the Flying Labs network, how can, you know, so, okay, we know the challenge, but how can we overcome the challenge? But in how we see it, in many ways, it's the strength lies in numbers and the strength lies in stories. Stories like the story of Queen that I just shared before, these kind of example, and the strength of having a network where we all can come together and become strong as a community, as a network, where we can inspire each other already to be the change and to lead the change, and then go out in every community where Flying Labs are and lead that change of the communities. Because it is a long haul challenge, because we need to change mindsets. And again, it's not just the mindsets, you know, on an international level. We see it in Flying Labs, it's really the mindset at local levels too, where local experts and then local women experts are not taken seriously by local governments, by local, you know, international organizations. And this is what we want to change.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenge I experience in, you know, in bringing women's grassroots women particularly experience as source of knowledge is we are facing with what you call academia context, right? And you know, because how do you deal with that, and what kind of narrative, what kind of proof that we reclaim the knowledge is not only belong to people with, you know, so-called expert, but the expert actually also coming from people at the ground.
Yeah, it's a very good. I see your point, Nani. It's such a good point to make. I don't know if I have the perfect answer. What I see is, again, examples like the one before with Cream, just doing it and showing it, making a difference, being the role models and being the ones who go out and do these, like the illegal settlement project in South Africa, in essence, a small pilot project, but show that this is possible, and show that, again, you on paper, you might not be the expert, but in the end, you are the expert, especially because you're going to be the facilitator of so many other local experts, like the local communities and the local youth who have lots to say. So it was interesting to, UNICEF joined that project later on. Because they saw, wow, like, these grassroots people who possibly don't look like experts, wow, this is quite amazing what they can create in terms of data and insights. So it's interesting, it's really, and that's our whole approach of the network. It's a very strong bottom-up approach, and just doing and showing by doing instead of talking. And that's what we wanted with the network from the beginning on. It's a network approach that is bottom-up. Again, where Flying Labs join the network and on their own demand, and where we do, and where we let the stories and the examples and the work actually speak for itself on a very local level. Because that's, I think, is the only way we see to overcome, like you see also, not being the academic expert or even the expert from the North coming.
That's very, very powerful. I think we have some question from the audience. Thank you. The first question is, you mentioned before that you also involve young people, and the questions from this one of the audience is, what role do young people play in your project? In maybe give some example for that will be great, Sonja.
So again, like a number of Flying Labs are actually led by quite young people. And that's a great first start. And any Flying Lab is leading youth projects. I think while Flying Labs as an expertise hub really focus on professional applications with ministry, with local government, with civil society in the countries, all of them have an amazing passion for youth programs, and actually hold their own youth programs a lot of time without any funding, just doing it on their Saturdays or on their own kind of, time and funding, because they know that if you want to change mindsets, it'll happen through youth. Is as many youth as we actually can engage and become part of that change. This is what will change the mindsets, because it's, again, I think it's the masses. It's like I said before, the strength in numbers. The more youth you can engage and be part of that, and see that these perceptions are so wrong, the faster we're going to get there.
Great. And the second question, I think this is about the intersection that you also mentioned. So the question is, could you talk about any test cases in the field of health? Any major learning regarding to intersection of tech and healthcare? This is great questions.
Right. So I would not be the good specialist because my colleague is leading many of the health projects, but the intersection definitely lies here again with the projects that Flying Labs do on a very community level. So, for example, there's Philippine Flying Labs that recently had a really interesting drone project for drone delivery. So drones are used to acquire data, but drones are more and more used also to deliver urgent medical supplies or medicines. And here again, I think the experience we really have is it'll work when it's a bottom-up approach, when it's hosted within the local communities, when the work is with the local communities, is when the local communities are actually going to be the ones who operate the drones. This is the only way that these kind of health projects actually will have a future and are sustainable, is they're led at a very local level and with technologies that the community actually feels comfortable with. And the projects, it's not by bringing someone in that these projects will be sustainable. So I think it comes very much down, especially in health projects, when it touches on drones, that it needs to be community-led and owned by the community.
Yeah, I very much resonate on that, and strongly. I agree with you strongly that for sustainability, anything should be grounded and led by the community. This is another good question. I mean, related with that as well. How do you find the local leaders and build up the local network. So I think it's pretty
It's
much
a perfect question. It's like, we don't find them, they find us, or I would say they find the network. You know, it's really it's word to mouth in the network, and there's about, depending on years, so the network grows organically, and this year we started the year with 31 flying labs, and right now we are at 37, and how it looks, we're going to end the year with 39 or 40. So it's really local leaders who want to join the network, who see value in becoming part, because they finance themselves too. We're not financing them, they finance their own local flying labs. And so it is really them finding us and not us finding them, because they see the value of becoming part of this community, of being the local leaders in their country. And the biggest value I think that they see is just being connected to other like-minded local experts in other countries where they can share their experiences. And again, I think there's a lot of strength in numbers, you know, so I just had this morning, I can give an example, a really interesting discussion with one of the newest flying labs in Ethiopia. And we talked about how they want to organize a conference locally, but nobody's taking them seriously. And so now, as they're part of the network, they can invite colleagues from Nepal, they can invite colleagues from Panama, and this way they look way more credible. It's still the same people, but by having a network and colleagues all around the planet, it makes them look like an international group, which they are in many ways, but from a very local perspective. So we hope that many more will find the network and share our values of collaboration and sharing within the network.
Yeah, so they find I think people look for some things, right? That's why I think they're local leaders and very much aware of that. This is another one from Kenny. Kenny Pruitt. One of the big challenges we find within our organization in our network is transitioning ongoing and serious leadership to people from underrepresented communities, even when there is will and resources to do so. So what challenges are you running into there? Any keys or suggestions for others that are struggling with this?
It's a very good point, Kenny, and I think anyone, you know, who works on a global level and in this way will possibly run into these same issues and challenges. The answer we found for our network some years ago for that is we created a joint governance model together with the network leaders, where we decided what are our, you know, kind of most important values and how can we measure them. And it's values like sharing and collaboration and ethics and professionalism and partnership. So anything that the network members thought were important as being seen as a strong network that has good governance. And then we put into place a self-evaluation kind of methodology where each flying labs measures themselves once a year and then shares these measures back with us so we can create a benchmark for the network and for them to kind of understand where can they improve. And then being able to reach out to others in the network, to other flying labs and get help. You know, if you're really strong in sharing, but you're not that good in, for example, ethics, you can reach out to one who is really strong in ethics and learn from them. So for us, to keep up, and it's, you know, it's possibly a bit different because you already transitioned in many ways at the network level, because it is led by local leaders, but still for them to be held accountable in many ways is by this governance model that they decided actually to have. In a retreat about 3 years ago, when Flying Lab said, you know, like, we're only as strong as the weakest link. So what we need to make certain as a network is that we can find out the weak links and we can support and help them to get stronger.
How big is Sonja? I mean, how many people, leaders, are directly engaged?
I just updated our impact numbers, so I know actually by the person, because I did this yesterday. So right now it's 272 people in the network. It's 37 countries and 272 people.
That's great. It's big. Okay, we have another questions. Are you planning to go beyond drones? Because I think there's since we understand that technology is unlimited, right? And everything can be related with all the issues that we are working on at the ground.
That's a fantastic question. Thank you for asking that. Yes, in many ways. So at the Flying Labs network level, we're already looking in bringing in new technologies that are not just drones, and there's also a lot of data and AI work. But for WeRobotics, actually, that was our ultimate goal from the beginning. We said that, these issues or challenges are true to our sector, but they're true just about any sector. So what we did from the beginning on is document our experience on creating this network model that is very different because it's bottom up, it's really truly locally led, it's radically inclusive in many ways. And now to be able to share this experience and our model with other organizations who are interested in taking the same approach. So I'm working with consortium in Africa for the first model adoption. So we're already trying this model out for something very different with a consortium that is led by 3 African organizations for a new network in gender and AI called GRAIN. And we're not the network leaders, we're just the supporters with our model from our side to see, how could they create the gender and AI network in Africa built on the same model. And then this is going to be a great learning. And from there on, we hope that we can contribute with our experience and this kind of approach to many other organizations who would want to take like radically inclusive and bottom-up approach, network approach to these challenges that happen in so many different sectors.
Okay, great. Wow, very active our audience. There are a lot of questions. So now one more question, maybe we still have time. Where did you get your own personal passion for this work? Can you tell us about your own change maker experience? This is from Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, I got my passion. I was lucky enough to also live in Africa and Latin America for a previous job I actually held in conservation, and I really got my passion, by being immersed in local expertise and always saying that, like, I know nothing, and though I think I know, I actually don't. And local experts are really the ones who know. And then from there, coming back to my country here in Switzerland and working in the tech sector and being exposed to drones and say, like, wow, like, imagine if you put these kind of tools in the hands of local experts, and can help that. that'll be fantastic. So my passion really comes from there. Is by having had the chance to live in many amazing countries in Africa and Latin America, and being immersed with local experts and learning that I have a skill in facilitation and coordination, but that's possibly where my skill stops. And so let me use that skill and connect local experts to what they need.
So someone asking, from where are you in Latin America?
So I am actually from Switzerland, but I was able to work with previous work
maybe the flying lab in Latin America.
The flying labs in Latin America, they're in Bolivia, Chile, Panama, Dominican Republic. Let me not forget flying labs in South Africa, Haiti. And I'm forgetting, well, Caribbean, we have Jamaica, and I think I might forget someone. But if you go to flyinglabs.org, you have a beautiful map and as a homepage, and then you can find all the 37 countries that are part of the network today.
Wow, we almost at the end of this conversation. My last question, how do you see you in the next 5 years, Sonja, with this work and tech? And in Ashoka, we have this tech and humanity is one very important topic in our next now.
So, I mean, 2 ways. Thank you, Nanya. I think, in one way, just the network to grow in size, but to grow in strength and to grow in women. I think this is where we really, really want to make a difference also. So I proudly can say that this year, some months ago, our team now, 100% of our tech positions at WeRobotics are held by women. 80% of WeRobotics team members are women. So, we've come a long way. I started as the only woman 7 years ago. So we've come a long way within WeRobotics. And this also thanks to my co-founders who have this mindset that it's important to be radically inclusive. And so I think that, and that the network, I really love to see the network, at a gender equity, 50-50. That's what it needs to be. So this is what we're going to work hard on. Also with specific programs we're planning with the network to just have more women being interested in joining flying labs, existing flying labs. And then on our side, my dream is to see our model being adopted and adapted by many organizations to scale, to localize in a very different way.
I'm super excited. I will connect you with some grassroots women who's doing a lot of data, and I think they need to get connected with you on these technologies things. Yeah. Unfortunately, we already a little bit past of our 30 minutes conversation. Thank you so much, Sonja. This is so inspiring. And for all colleagues here, look out for our follow-up email with a link to today's recording and highlights to browse and share. And we hope you'll join next time. Welcome Change is a weekly series about the future we want to live in and the role we can all play. You can sign up using the link in the chat. Have a good day, everyone, and see you soon. Thanks, Sonja.
Thank you so much, Nani.
Very inspiring.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.